Morning.
Okay. I'm just not happy with the idea that you gave me all the hard questions. We did receive some questions online, and we just got a bunch of them given in from the congregation. So
did we address the shooting?
I already, yeah.
First service.
Yeah.
Can you find my mic? It's
All right. You know, we need to take a moment to just send a prayer or two out to all of those people that were victims of the terrorist attack in New Zealand. And I know that people have questions on their mind whenever we have these kind of incidents taking place. We wonder, where are we going and how far have we come, the human race attempting to receive and develop harmony and peace in our world? Well, we know we haven't exactly accomplished that on the collective level of human awareness. But we must remember throughout that each of us is divine in origin. To the degree that we become more consciously aware of that, to that degree we not only find harmony, healing, peace, and love in ourselves, but we begin to find it in others. So at this juncture again, we have to send love. We have to be expressions of love and peace and healing. And we're not there yet, but we have to find a way to carry that awareness with us. That's what we do in Unity. We acknowledge our divine essence, and we let that be the expression in our lives. Okay, so we got a bunch of questions here. Who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay.
All right, so this came in from this service. The question is, are there different answers to this question for different people based on past lives? And this is referring to obviously finding your life's purpose. And, you know, we discuss past lives here at Unity of Boulder, but not necessarily all Unities actually really go there. It's not necessarily part of the Unity philosophy. He's shaking. He's like, I can't believe we're starting here.
Charles believed in it.
But my personal journey, I very much believe in that process. And I think that from my studies and the things that I've looked into, I feel that our past lives have a lot to do with what our purpose is in any given lifetime. You know, I love the idea that Edgar Cayce, who's the most documented psychic of our time, said that our souls are here to either grow in a lifetime or they won't grow. They'll go backwards sometimes. And so that might be, you know, coming in a very angry person and not doing well, or picking up alcohol or something like that would be a lifetime where the soul decided to go backwards and not moving forwards. Because it's an evolution that, you know, life is here to grow a soul to more and more awakening, more unfoldment of this spiritual connection with something greater. And so I feel like everything is kind of in divine order in our lives. Even the difficult stuff that shows up is part of the unveiling of what one's purpose is in a given life. And honestly, I think that there's many different purposes in this lifetime, and it changes through the phases of our life, you know. But there's usually an underlying current of the main purpose of a soul in its lifetime, and it's really about researching oneself, to knowing thyself, and recognizing that it's trial and error. You got to be brave with this one. You got to really be willing to go for it. And, you know, sometimes we make really large mistakes in the process of unveiling what we're here to do and be. But we always have the choice to come back to our divine connection, to that divine understanding that there's something greater at hand always that we can tap into to awaken the knowledge of what we're here.
Well,
what our purpose is.
you also answered the second question from the congregation. Are challenges also necessary part of life and growth or a sign we're not on the path? So, are challenges a necessary part of our life and growth, or is it a sign that we're not on our path, following our unique purpose? Well, it depends on what is taking place. Basically, challenges are necessary to give us opportunities to grow certain strengths and talents and abilities on our soul level. But then again, if you are continually meeting a specific kind of resistance, I remember there's a comedian that does a thing about relationships, and he said he's had 100 relationships. He said, but the one I'm in now is really different. And he goes on to talk about how it's never different. So if you're still running into the same kind of situation that's resisting what it is you are doing, then maybe you need to take a strong or harder look at what you're doing and find a way to deal with it.
I think, does everyone have the same purpose? I think they do. Ultimately, the purpose is just to reveal God in your life, to find God. That is the ultimate purpose of everyone. Is there sort of a subsect of that, of like what you specifically need to do on your way to that final goal? Yeah, I think, and that can be lifetime specific, and that can be specific to you. But ultimately, there is just one purpose to life as far as I see it, and that is the purpose. And to difficulties, Buddha said, if we don't have them, we have no impetus to grow. So they absolutely are necessary. They're the only thing that actually nudge us to keep trying and to keep going, to try something new, to learn, to expand, and to open up. So, but like Jack's saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. You are supposed to grow through those difficulties, not just say, oh, that was horrible, and have no growth out of it.
All right. Okay, you want to take a question from the ones we received online? Or?
All right, yeah, I've got... I think you could take this one.
I don't know which one it is.
When you talk about God's guidance, does that mean God guides you to find your right work, your right lifelong companion, the right place to live, etc.? How did God guide Jackson Tish and Shad to find your purpose?
Oh. Here's the thing about guidance. I don't agree with that there's a specific plan for your life. I think there is only a plan for life, and you get to live and fulfill that plan in your specific expression of life. But again, the plan is ultimately just to find God. But on that path, I think we make our lives difficult by trying to find a specific thing that this is what I am supposed to do, instead of learning how to align with the essence and flow of life itself, so that no matter what specific thing you wind up in, you are fulfilling your purpose. So a lot of the questions we found talk about, how do I hear Spirit, how do I hear God, and more specifically, how do I get out of my current job? And you can hear these questions trying to find a justification for leaving a job they don't currently like. And the point is, if you can't find joy in whatever you're currently doing, you probably will never find it in whatever you're expecting to find joy later on in life, whatever you think you want, think you need. And so really the process comes down to, have you learned to listen? Have you learned to listen to the voice of Spirit? Have you learned to listen to the flow of life, so that no matter what you are currently doing, whether that's raising kids, whether that means you're homeless, whether that means you're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, no matter what it is, have you learned to stand into your purpose and grow with that purpose in a direction that's not specifically determined by what you're currently doing? Does that make any sense? Mm-hmm. Your purpose has to be so much bigger than these little things. So as humans, we try to break them up into little slices that we can eat. It's my job. My job's got to be the problem. I need the perfect job, so I must leave this job to find that perfect job. But that's not the problem. The problem is you haven't learned how to find joy in things, regardless of where you're standing.
Okay.
I don't know if that had anything to do with the questions.
That's
I don't
pretty
remember
good.
the
No, it
question at
didn't.
all.
You have to leave the stage now. Okay. I had a question that came up in Fellowship Hall about what is prayer to do with finding our life's purpose? And we've had a question online and from the congregation about the difference between prayer and meditation. Well, the thing that we have to find our way into and understand has to do with a shift in the way we define life. And that's part of our spiritual journey, to shift in the way we define ourselves and the lives we are living. And prayer and meditation, when people say, what's the difference between them? Well, in a sense, prayer and meditation are communications with the divine. This divine intelligence we acknowledge to be the creator and working within everyone. And each of us needs to make some type of alignment with that intelligence. So you will hear me say sometimes, we should arrive at a place where we are not praying to God, but we are praying from God. Because it has to do with our concept of God. As long as we're praying to God, God is more or less separate. We feel a separation, and we're trying to get God's attention to intervene on something or some place or some situation. So we're hoping that God will intervene and bring about some change. But if you understand what was being taught by the masters, and specifically Jesus, when he went through all of that you read about in the Bible, and people were looking for help or healing, he said to them, do you believe that I am able to do this? Over and over again. And when it was done, he said, your faith or your belief has made you whole. Has made you whole enough to be aware of the truth and be free in it. And that's what we're doing in Unity. Our spiritual practice is all about that, becoming more and more God conscious, so that the world isn't able to drive out the feeling of forgiveness, or drive out the feeling of community, or drive out the feeling of compassion in our lives. That's what the world does over and over again through the media. They acknowledge the aggressive individual who gets things done by hook or by crook, by the power of his own wit or will or intellect. But, see?
I know where you're
I'm
going.
done, okay.
So in computer terms, prayer is the upload and meditation is the download.
Nice way to put it.
I always like the idea that there's even questions between meditation and prayer, because I see it all the same. And it's, we want to put names to everything and the technicalities between the spiritual life. And honestly, there is no wrong way to connect with God. There's sitting by rivers, there's being in nature, looking for signs and symbols through creatures and animals showing up and looking what those animal totems represent. Living in an existence where everything is divine. Everything is divine. Everything is a prayer. When you're living in the neutrality that you're not signing up for the aggression of the world, you're signing up for the peace of the world. And, I think it was you and I that had a little bit of a giggle that there was a book that showed up that somebody has defined 25 ways of praying or something, and you said, so like, oh, that's all? 25 ways we have to learn how to get to God through prayer. I mean, we laugh at that stuff because it's, everybody's just intellectualizing something that can't be intellectualized. It's a heart connection.
There it is.
And,
There it is.
and my favorite books are the ones that are written about people's real journeys into awakening and unfolding into themselves. And usually it's books like Broken Open, like really difficult times in people's lives where finally they stopped trying to control everything and allowed God to take over, you know.
But to speak to my intellectual folk, sometimes we do enjoy a structure, being handed a structure and saying, here are the steps to pray. And that works for a lot of people to have that. So heart-centered people don't want to have a structure. It's just, you know, it's all touchy-feely.
That's right, Chad. That's what we want.
I think there's a lot of us that like to have, you know, this is the time you do it, this is how you're going to do it, and you're going to do it for this length of time and in this way, to give you sort of that momentum, that structure to start building that practice so it becomes a consistent thing you do, so that you start to build into that heart space. And there's a lot of intellectual stuff that has to be worked through in that process. Even for heart-centered people, a lot of them can be so disconnected from the intellect that they're losing contact with the physical world too soon. And like you were saying last service, they jump out of a career because they say, I'm inspired to move to Boulder. And then they wind up being homeless here because they didn't take the intellectual steps to prepare themselves for that process. So there's a balance between the two to make that work.
Yeah, people will say, how do I become enlightened? And you think that you're going to go like that and you're enlightened. Your whole life is the unfoldment of that process. My dad is a minister 30 years ago, and who he is as a father and a minister now are two completely different people. The evolution has happened from a child's visual of a person's growth. It's constant. It's forever. His lifetime was to grow this lifetime, clearly, and so is mine and his. But we've gotten to watch it from the vantage point of looking up at the father role and to see that it never ends. There's more and more unfoldment of wisdom that comes from this universe. And if anything, I learn, I get quieter and less caught up in the world the older I get. I don't have a desire for the stress and the gossip anymore. Like, that's the phase I'm in. I want to sit and enjoy my life now. You know what I mean? It's like, who needs all the drama? And he's been there for a very long time, and he just lives in a spiritual space. You know, it's easier to get there, I think, once your kids leave. I have my human moments, you know, hello.
What else do we have for questions?
Oh,
Okay.
I want to just piggyback on the idea that prayer and meditation, yes, whatever technique you may use for prayer or meditation or the both of them, ultimately your desire to make that communication will bring that divine awareness into play. It will guide you to your own individual way to make that connection more effectively. So it's there, and when you're motivated to enter into that, and you're doing it on a daily basis, and you're trying to bring it forth into your expression in your life, it's going to come and reveal to you the best possible way for you to enter into your oneness with God. Okay?
All right, this is a question that we covered at the last service. I'm a freshman in college, and my parents are paying my tuition. They expect me to get a degree in something, but I hate school. I just want to be free to explore life in my own way and find my own life's purpose. What should I do? And I found this interesting because Shad and I had a different opinion. That's a big shocker. We have different approaches to life, and that's why we both have that connection, but it's different. See, for me, I've been doing spiritual counseling here for a very, very long time, and this speaks a lot to the idea that people really have a hard time stopping defining themselves as what their parents wanted them to be. Like, we have a need we want that approval. We want that father-mother approval in our lives. And so this kid is having anguish around the fact that he doesn't know what he wants to do in his life yet. And he doesn't want to go to college, and they're saying, well, you just need to get a degree. Well, why would you want to get a degree if you don't know what you want to be yet? Right? Is the unfoldment of this soul knows that he's not ready to do this. He hates school at the moment. And I can relate with that because that's who I was out of high school. I had no idea what I wanted to go to school for. And luckily, I had parents that supported that, and they understood that I will do it when I'm ready, and I'm clear about what my purpose was. And it took a long time for me to figure that out completely. And so I just want to really tell people from the vantage point that I'm sitting on that you have got to let go of the need to get other people's approval, not just your parents' approval. The only approval you ever have to achieve in this lifetime is your own. And you know when you're living within your self-approval because you feel good. And when you feel good, you feel God. When you feel guilty and you feel shame and you feel these things, then you are not within the reality of the self-acceptance and self-love. So really making a decision from that place, not what your friend said or what your mom said or your dad said. Quit seeking to others for what you are supposed to be doing in this lifetime. Seek ye first the kingdom of God within you, which is God. And then it will be unfolded within you, a part of you, and outpictured as you.
No, you're not going to contest it this time because you know that she's right.
No, his point, I think, is really good because he came from a different lifetime, different soul.
And I actually had a conversation with a professor after the first service. And she was saying, I can see both your perspectives, but my perspective is most people just junk away those years of their life anyway, so why not get a degree out of it? If you've got parents that are willing to pay for you to go through this process, when there's hundreds of thousands of people who don't, and what a gift, and that's what the professor was saying. She's saying, what a gift it is to be, if you're at a college, there's an infinite amount of possibilities of classes and things you can study and groups you can be a part of, and to find your purpose, it's like taking the entire world and stepping it on your doorstep and saying, here, discover your world. What an opportunity that is, and to just throw that away and say, oh, that's not my thing. I'm going to go river rafting for 4 years. And at the end of your river rafting for 4 years, you've got nothing except a lot of debt and worries, probably. At least those were my friends.
Well, you can still gather a lot of debt by going to college these days.
No, absolutely. And I'm not even the biggest proponent of college, but if you're in college and someone's paying for it, why not take advantage of that and do something with it?
But if you're going to waste your parents' money...
Which does happen. Basically...
Now we're getting to backstory. There's no backstory here. Just said they're paying, and they're not appreciative of them paying. That's what I hear.
Right. No, I understand that. That's good.
Okay.
Well, there was a study done by a gentleman that did a TED Talk, and he was talking about the 80% that's the happiest in this world versus the 20%. And he studied it through his friendships of all the people that went to college, and they all went to Harvard. And when they came back for their 25th, anniversary of their lives, the 20% that were the happiest were the ones that went into their purpose or into their schooling from a creative standpoint, not from a financial standpoint, or wanting to be of service. So wanting to be pro bono lawyers, wanting to help the planet, there was something about what people needed from them instead of what they wanted to give to people. It was a feeling that they needed to help people. And the ones that were the most unhappy, that felt that they had given their whole life away and enjoyed nothing, had all the mansions, probably had 3 marriages by this point, had all the money in the world, and they were empty. They were the 20%, the ones that went after purpose for money, not for actual purpose.
Right. Well, I think that's a very important point about the presence of this divine in our lives. The presence of the divine in our lives is creative, so that when we're involved in giving something and doing something of value, we simply feel good. If you're having even a hard time praying or meditating or living your life and you're just down in the dumps a lot, it's because you're not giving. Idle time truly is the devil's workshop in the mind, because you have too much time to think about what I need, what's going wrong, why can't I get things done, why don't I have this happen? Well, what you need to do if you're in that stew is to find something that requires you to give. Get involved, and even get a job. Many people who I used to counsel with were just in the funk because it never worked. Some of them didn't have to work, but they weren't happy. And you're not happy unless you're part of this universe and being a constructive, purposeful part. Find something that you can do that brings some help, some clarity, some joy to others, or some project that needs to be done and get it finished. You will find happiness in that because that's your divine, creative, divine energy coming through, enlivening you in the process of giving.
I think you should read the one about Eckhart Tolle. I think that's
Okay.
not the quote from him, but the question someone had.
Okay.
Do you not know where it is? Do you want me to find
I
it?
got it right here.
Okay.
Yeah. Jack says Eckhart Tolle is an enlightened master. I read his book, New Earth. According to him, the human race is mostly crazy, hell-bent on destroying the planet. I tried his now practice. It makes me a little more peaceful, but the world just keeps getting crazier. Aren't we supposed to take action, political and otherwise, to help save our planet? And, right now, I think it's the #1 issue on the agenda of life. You can suggest, environmental things that people can do to help the planet. But I think what these scientists are talking about now is that we have to get very focused on legislating certain things that will be required of human beings if we want to save this planet for future generations. And that's a really important issue. I think it's a top issue in everything we're talking about. So that's my answer to this. Yes, we do have to get involved wherever we can. It may not be political, it may be political, but it may be someplace else. It may be working in some capacity to clean up the waterway, to clean up the planet, to stop the pollution. It may be anything, but it's something that we all have to become part of.
Your water running when you're brushing your teeth.
Okay, so
Yeah.
after that PSA announcement,
No.
the reason I wanted to bring that conversation up was not to talk about the politics of it, but the point being that we do have a calling to do something in this time, but what I see, unfortunately, is more people losing themselves in that cause into anger and frustration and rage. And that does more of a disservice than the actual action they think they're doing. And so it's finding a balance between how much can I do if I'm going to go march, if I'm going to do petitions, how much can I do and still remain in a place of joy and peace? And if I find myself at a rally and I'm screaming and I'm frothing at the mouth, perhaps I've gone too far. Perhaps I've lost myself in the process. So I think that's something that a lot of people need to be aware of. Yes, we do need to act. Yes, we need to do something. But am I doing it with the right intention? Am I showing up as the right human being? I mean, how many times do you see a rally on TV and it's a bunch of screaming, angry people? And my first thought is, I don't want whatever they're offering. I don't care if they're offering to save the planet. I don't want it the way they're offering it. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be associated with it. I don't want them in power. I don't want them in leadership. I don't want their cause. If they're not showing up with peace and love, that's not a world I want to be a part of. So that's it.
Yeah.
And that's a key, position to take in whatever challenges you may be having in your life. People sometimes will ask, I'm involved in this court suit, with my brother or my sister over this property or that property. I don't know. How do I approach this? And what you do is you do everything that you feel is necessary to bring about a just result, but always do it in a state of peace. You can't do it. Outside a state of peace, you're not really helping anything. And so the idea in our lives is to do everything in God consciousness, to carry the peace and bestow the peace, to carry the joy and bestow the joy and the love in everything we do. And as we do that, we're healing the consciousness of humanity, and we're healing our planet.
Yeah, being a living conduit of that love for every person, every place, every single thing, the children, everyone. I
That kind of leads into this question we got from the online. Says, how can I help a friend who is struggling and cannot find their life's purpose? And I first read that, the first thing that popped into my head was, they don't have a purpose problem, they have a joy problem. I think a lot of people are distracted on this concept of purpose when they really haven't figured out the fundamentals of joy. Your purpose doesn't necessarily bring you instantaneous joy. When I first got into ministry, it was far more difficult than anything else I was doing previously up to that point. And it was one of the most painful things I've done, because trying to impart wisdom and love onto a group of people that you don't feel are getting it is so taxing on your energy.
That wasn't you guys, though.
No.
Right?
It
was you.
This
Stop
is many
taxing.
lifetimes ago.
Stop taxing that kid.
No, it's a very real situation. As a minister, you want to see people grow. And when you see certain people still struggling with the same exact thing year after year after year, that can be very saddening and disheartening. So the process is, I need to learn to find joy in any situation I'm currently in. That's the first step. Your purpose is going to unfold naturally when you learn to find joy with whatever you're in. Remember, Dr. Phil had a relationship book called Love the One You're With. Learn to love the one you're with. Because that's a lot easier than trying to go out and find a different one that's going to fit your expectations.
Oh, that's not
and
true
demands.
in Boulder.
So anyway, I think a lot of this is a joy problem and not necessarily a purpose problem, because purpose naturally unfolds when you find joy.
Well, I think it's a passion problem, too. I think, there was a question at the last service where a mother was saying that she's not feeling as much passion towards her life because she has young children at home. And I'm sure that was a hard thing to write as a mother, but I could completely relate with that. When my children were little, they're all in consuming. It's noise. It's the most selfless time of your life. And your passions and your things, your what you're here to be and do, are pushed to the side for bottles and diapers and just tedious going and cleaning and just, and there's very little thank yous in it. And people would probably say, well, isn't your purpose to be a parent when the kids are little? And you don't ever lose your soul's journey. The children are a part of that journey. And if I have any advice for people that are in that spell and wanting to still find their purpose, it's really important to at least keep educating yourself in the things that make your heart sing. What makes you still jive? What is your thing? What is the thing that makes you feel alive? Is there music that you listen to that makes you want to dance in your living room? Is there, a concert that you went to that you could find on YouTube? Remember the young you and the one that has passion, all these things. Don't let yourself become stagnant and feel like you lose you during the kids, because they're watching everything. They don't do what you say, they do what you do. Self-care is taught to our children. Right? But learning to take care of oneself so that you are not a victim in this world, but that there is energy and love pouring over this glass, because there's so much to give, because you give it back to yourself. You're teaching your children how to be that way. That's how you create giants in this world. It's not selfish to fill your glass up with God and spirit and dancing and singing and life, so that they see this fun mom that's there and excited to be there, and then they grow up and they can have their purpose fulfilled as well as be great parents.
Yeah. Sometimes hard decisions have to be made, and maybe you don't always make them in joy. I prefer the word peace rather than joy. Joy seems to be sometimes in peace, you can make decisions that need to be made, And I have a question here. I'm a middle-aged single mom, still with a daughter 28 years old, who lives with me. I work full-time as a waitress to support her, who hardly ever works and contributes nothing when she does. I want to go to night school, but I can't. Should I throw her out? She might become a prostitute. I'm not getting any clear signs from God what to do. So the answer to this question is not something, a lot of people are facing something like this. You know, you're a parent for so long, but then after a while, you still have to, you know, take care of what Santisha was talking about, your own guided journey in life. So in a situation like this, if it is as clearly stated as it is, then in this situation, it would be very helpful for this daughter to be put out on her own, to say, look, you got to find a life and take care of your own business. I've got a life I've got to follow as well.
And you're not putting her out on her own. What you're doing is you're giving her to God to
Yeah.
take care of her finally. If you
Right.
really believe in God, then this child would have been out of your house at 18. You would have trusted that it was time to let the child fly in the arms of God.
Well,
Right? So it's developing that trust so that you don't have to be worried that you're like leaving this child alone. You're finally letting her live and thrive and use this greater power that lives within her. You're enabling the power in this beautiful being because you don't think they can function. It's
Yeah,
time to go. Time to fly, honey.
okay.
I mean, I know I'll have a hard time with that when my kids get older. I get that, but you'll
Yeah,
be
I think
there
I'll be
to
there.
remind me to get him out.
It comes back to bigger picture thinking. So here you have this mom trapped in a situation. She's thinking very small picture. How's this going to affect my daughter in the short term? How's this going to affect me? I've got my wants and my needs, my desires. But what will bring the most peace, as Jack would prefer, I'm going to say joy, to most people in the longest term. Short term, she's probably not really happy in this situation as the younger child with her mother. She's probably depressed. Long term, she's also going to be depressed because there's really nothing in that situation that she's growing out of. And the same for mom. So if you step back from it, you say, in the short term, if I ask her to move out on her own, there's going to be a lot of suffering and pain that goes through that process for me and her. This might be 2 months, might be 6 months, it might be 2 years. But if I'm stepping back and I'm taking a bigger picture, a bigger look, I'm saying I have to be able to release my attachment to whatever I think this situation is and my fear of what the outcome might be and look bigger and see, okay, for the both of us, it's healthier to start establishing our own lives. And it's not about kicking her out, it's about allowing her to become, like Santisha's saying, unfolded.
An adult.
Adults are boring.
Right.
I want to stay a kid.
No, but that's a common situation today. Now, it's understandable in some cases because
Absolutely.
the economy
Yeah.
is such that young people are, you know, there are not a lot of jobs, worthy jobs available. So they may stay at home or live at home for a while. But if they're not contributing, I mean, if they're not part of the contribution there, then they need to find a way to become
And in
responsible.
her actual wording of that question, she called her daughter a bum. So
Oh, yeah.
clearly she's not working and paying for part of the rent, right? You know, I mean, as long as that's going on, that's one thing. But
Yeah.
if a person's just hanging on you, then they haven't found their wings.